All right, just get your thoughts on yesterday, what happened at the storming the Capitol yesterday. Your thoughts on what went down.
It's an absolute tragedy. It was something that happened. You know, I posted yesterday on social media about this, and I said, you know, you can't stack the wood and pour the gas and light the match and claim innocence. President Trump called a protest, a rally, or whatever you want to call it in Washington, D.C., telling those people that something was going to happen, that something was going to happen yesterday in the Capitol, that the vote would not be as it turned out to be, that there could be a change or whatever. And you know, it was just a clear misrepresentation of what was going to happen yesterday. And so the net result of what did happen, unfortunately, in storming the Capitol, you know, was certainly an expected consequence of the rhetoric that had led to that point. And, you know, I've supported President Trump. I've supported him in the last two elections. And, but when you're looking at yourself and you're not looking at your country, in my opinion, which is occurring now, I'm sorry. It's unacceptable conduct. And he should be rebuked for that. We haven't had a scene like that occurring with regard to our Capitol, the building, since 1814, when the British invaded Washington. And remember, Dolly Madison fled the White House. It was on fire. She fled the White House with George Washington, the painting of George Washington. And we're in precarious times, and we all have to, it's a time for self-reflection. It's a time for, we're in this time where nobody can have an unexpressed opinion. Everybody feels like they have to say everything about everything. And unfortunately, in many cases, particularly in this case, people are being misled as to what the law is, what can be done. The rhetoric that was post-election, and I've talked about this since post-election. Of course, I've been called everything but a child of God because of it, but I've talked about this since the post-election. And when you talk about rigged elections and stolen elections, and when you talk about, and these words have meaning. When you use the word fraud, and when you talk like this, you got to back it up. And if you can't back it up, you got to shut up. And people say, well, they never got their shot, and 60 courts have heard some aspect of a claim of fraud. All of them have just summarily thrown out the cases. Now the argument is well, they never got a shot. They just got thrown out on technicalities. Yeah, the technicality is when you allege fraud, you gotta have something. You gotta attach it to your complaint. You can't just say it's so and make it so. And I tell people, the burden of proof in the coffee shop and now social media is a lot different than it is in the courthouse. And so you can say what you want to, and you can come up with every kind of conspiracy theory you can think there may exist. But at the end of the day, when you appear in front of a man or a woman in a robe in a courtroom, you got to step up and you got to make your case. And so they just didn't do that.
There's a lot of talk of implementing the 25th Amendment. What do you think should happen there? Should the president be removed from office or from power, I should say, right now? Or should they just stay in for the remaining 13 days?
I'm not going to get into the 25th Amendment. I mean, that's a whole nother kettle of fish. But, we've got 15 days and there will be a transfer of power. A new president will be sworn in. And that's the way it is. And so I'm it would be base speculation for me to even talk about that. And I've made a New Year's resolution to back up on base speculation.
What is going on within the Republican Party? Some say there is a civil war going on within the Republican Party. Do you agree with that? And if so, where does it go from here?
No, I think, look, you've got different aspects of the Republican Party has different aspects to it, just like the Democrat Party has different aspects to it. There's currently power struggles occurring within the Democratic Party. There are the um, Congresswoman Cortez, and her group of people, the squad, and others, Bernie Sanders and others, that are pulling the Democratic Party in one way, and then there's a resistance in that you've got Joe Manchin and others that are pulling that. That same thing is occurring in the Republican Party. But what's occurring now is more of there's something more than party, and that's our citizenship. That's being an American. And so when you look at what's happening now, and when you consider that these things don't happen here, and they don't happen here for a reason, and that they are happening, you have to set party aside for a minute, and you have to set that aside, and you have to just look, and you just have to say, I'm an American. We got to stand up, and this got to stop. I heard a lot of whataboutisms. I saw Marshall Ramsey kind of quoted that term, whataboutisms. It's always when you show an example, it's, well, what about what they did over here? I don't want to hear about the whataboutisms. When you storm the Capitol, that's it. That's the pinnacle of the worst thing that you can do, in my opinion, because that is the base of our government. And when you inflame the populace to do so, then you should be rebuked, and you should be ashamed. Unfortunately, we have a president who couldn't accept the fact that he lost an election and accused everybody. I mean, let's take one state, for example, Georgia, where every statewide elected official is a Republican, okay? Including the Secretary of State who runs the elections. And not only are they Republicans, they supported and endorsed President Trump, and President Trump supported and endorsed them. Yet when they did their jobs according to their constitutional obligations and authority, they were called out by the president, and they were treated badly, and they were accused of all kinds of nefarious conduct. You just can't have that. And as Republicans, there's a certain amount of introspection that has to occur. We have to look at this and say, this is not our party. This is not what we're about. And it's been brewing. I mean, what happened yesterday was the culmination of everything that happened since Election Day. So it's a difficult place that we're in. We'll get through it. I think last night, I watched the Senate debate, I watched the House debate. And, if you're a Republican and you're questioning whether or not what all is going on, all you have to do is look at those that have come together on this, from Rand Paul to Lindsey Graham, who are rarely together on political issues, both Republicans, to Vice President Pence, to Mitt Romney, to others. And you have to ask yourself, well, are those guys all wrong? I heard Lindsey Graham say, somebody said that in Georgia, it's always somebody said, right? Somebody said in Georgia that 66,000 or some number like that, people under voting age voted. And Lindsey Graham said, well, give me 10. And they didn't give him one. And they said in Arizona, some 6,000 prisoners who are ineligible to vote voted. And he said, well, give me 10. And they couldn't give him one. And so, it's easy enough to say what's so, but it's harder to prove what's so. And they never got to the point of proving what's so. Candidly, because they couldn't.
We've seen 4 members of the Mississippi Delegation vote in favor of electoral objections. What message is that sent?
I don't know how to really analyze that message. Those are good congressmen. And I respect them and what they do for Mississippi. but I really can't get into that. I don't know what the internal politics was going on with regard to their particular vote and their commitment to the president or somebody else with regard to that vote. And so I rarely get into the question of individual votes when I'm talking about a broader issue here. And the broader issue is um, you know, we're fundamentally constrained in our government in ways to prevent what happened yesterday. And so we broke. Something broke. And the reason it broke is because there was an instigator who broke it, who intended to break it and broke it. It's fixed now. They came together last night. Um, and it'll take a while to heal up, but you know, the net effect of what happened was a camaraderie that I saw on the Senate floor and on the House floor that I haven't seen in a while. Um, and I think that's a good thing. Candidly, we have got to get back to this point that we can fundamentally disagree on issues, but not be disagreeable. Um, we have lost the ability to discuss and just shake hands and say we won't agree on this, but let's go eat lunch. Um, and so we've got to get back to that. Unfortunately, social media allows an opportunity for an unchecked comment, question, post, whatever. Um, People don't check or verify the information that they're reading. They just accept it as so and move on. And so we have a personal responsibility in this regard. The time it takes to make a post, you could go on Google and verify it. But people, you know, so we're responsible. We're all responsible in this regard. And we need to start accepting that responsibility and acting accordingly.
Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter suspended the president's account. Will you believe that was the right thing to do?
I believe that those are all private businesses, and private businesses have the right to determine how they're going to do business. I can determine who comes in my office and who doesn't come in my office. And I don't, as long as the law provides for that, which it does, we can debate this, whether they're publishers or not, and all that other stuff that Congress has never gotten around to actually addressing, but they talk about a lot. But Twitter's privately owned shareholders, Facebook's privately owned shareholders. They have a board of directors and they've decided what they're going to do. If people don't like it, they don't have to have a free Twitter or a free Facebook or a free Instagram account. It's interesting to me that we complain about something that we receive for free. Don't have to join, but if you do, you don't have to pay, and you can participate or you cannot. It's your choice. And then to complain because you can't do what you want to do, it baffles me.
Do you believe we're going to have a peaceful transfer of power?
I do.
And what made you believe that?
Answer, right? I honestly do. I don't, I thought even before last night, we were going to have a peaceful transfer of power. I know after last night, we're going to have a peaceful transfer of power.
And what makes you feel so confident of that now?
I think that it was the wall, speed bump, the wall, whatever you want to call it. It's the check that took the air out of things, where people actually looked and said, whoa, what is this? What's happening here? And I think people looked at this and said, we've just gone too far.
What do you see happening in the future with President Trump and supporters of Trump down the road? Are we going to see more confrontation, or what's going to happen? What do you see after the transfer of power?
You know, I don't know. Politics abhors a vacuum. And so, you know, beginning January 21st, the 2024 election will start, right? and we will begin to hear from those who are going to begin to test the water, so to speak, as to running for president. It's an inevitable construct of the way that our government works. And so we'll just kind of see. We'll see who steps up and who steps out. I'm proud of Mike Pence for basically saying, I've got to do what the law says I've got to do. It's interesting that we come to the point where we have to be proud of somebody, or we express our pride in somebody for actually doing that which he has to do. But it's you know, and so we're just going to have to look, and we'll see. And if President Trump decides to run in 2024, we'll see if there are candidates who are going to take him on.
You believe the party will remain the party of Trump, or do you believe it will be two Republican parties?
I don't call the party of Trump. We're the party of Lincoln. And now whether or not President Trump is the nominee in 2024, we'll just have to see.
What's your message to Mississippians who witnessed what happened yesterday and might be somewhat disillusioned about everything that's going on in America today, with everything happened not only yesterday but throughout 2020 when it came to protest, pandemic, and everything else, and just kind of like throwing their hands up now?
Well, it hadn't been a good year, but you know, we're a country that we've had some tough times. I think of the Depression and the years of the Depression, or I think of the war years, World War I and World War II. Those were tough. And when you think about the Vietnam War, when you think about times, you know, we have good times and you have bad times. It's how you define good times sometimes, right? And so we're in a tough time, but we're resilient, and we're finding ways. I mean, you know, to President Trump's credit, he said he'd have a vaccine out in a year, and he did. And so, you know, there are things that have happened, and the vaccine's being administered, and soon I expect COVID-19 will be a thing of the past. And unfortunately, it will have left a pretty significant path in its wake, unfortunately. And lots of people have lost lots of people they love. And so, but we just have to look at this as what it is, and we have to decide as a country, is this acceptable conduct? Is this acceptable behavior? Are we going to wallow in it, so to speak, or are we going to step up? And just like we have time and time again, and never not have, we always step to meet the call. And we will find good leaders who will unite us, and we will move forward with common interests.